Now, it's time to get down to business by opening the first agenda of today, the Energy Dialogue. Let's all welcome the moderator for this session, a fellow correspondent, a senior correspondent, in fact. He covers energy and climate change topics over at Time magazine, Justin Worland. If you are watching on the live stream or you're on Twitter or Instagram, you can also join the conversation. Ask us anything by using the hashtag YouthLeadsSDG7. Justin, you have the floor.
Well, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you for having me, and to everyone for joining for this important discussion. I'm thrilled to be in a conversation today with youth energy leaders as well as the SRSG about a whole slew of topics: sustainable recovery, building a better out of the COVID pandemic, net zero emissions, and of course SDG 7 and sustainable energy access for all. Before we jump into the conversation, I just want to make the audience aware of a couple things. One, the chat is open for conversation amongst participants, but we will have solicited questions in advance, so we won't actually be taking questions from the chat. And the other thing to note is that we have a poll for you, and so we hope that you will all participate in the poll. It would be great to have a little bit of an interactive exchange to see what people are thinking in the audience. With that, I want to start by introducing Damilola Ogunbiyi, the SRSG and CEO of Sustainable Energy for All. She is Special Representative of the UN Secretary General for Sustainable Energy for All and co-chair of UN Energy. Of course, she is a champion for youth participation, obviously convening the summit, but as she has talked about herself, she led an agency at age 27, so she knows what it's like to be a young person leading in this space. I should say she at the time was general manager of the Lagos State Electricity Board. And she has a long list of other titles, but I just want to start by thanking you for being here and for convening. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much for having me at my own youth summit. But it was very, very important for me for the first big event that happened during my tenure to be about the youth, because we really believe that the innovation and the drive the youth brings will allow us to solve this problem by 2030. So thank you, Justin.
Well, thank you. And then I'm just going to go through the youth speakers to allow them to introduce themselves very briefly. And we'll start with Vanessa Nakate.
Hi, my name is Vanessa Nakate, and I'm a climate activist from Uganda. Nice to be here.
Wenhao soon.
Hi, everyone. My name is Wenhao. I'm originally from China and currently at Columbia University School of International and Public Affairs. Happy to be here.
Great. And Sophia Mifsud.
Hi, everyone. My name is Sophia Mifsud. I'm a senior associate at a climate change energy nonprofit, RMI, where we work to move away from fossil fuels towards a future that is clean, prosperous, and zero carbon for all. I'm so excited to be here with you all and share my experience. Thanks for having me.
Well, thank you all for the introductions. We're going to start, we have two segments. The first segment is going to talk a bit about recovery. Coming out of the COVID pandemic, obviously recovery is a big theme. How do we build better than we had before? And we're going to start with a poll question. We're going to open the poll to the audience, which is, how can SEforALL support you as youth to support your local communities to recover better with clean energy access? So you can vote now, and then we'll have a conversation. We'll look at the poll results a little bit later. But I want to start with the SRSG while we wait for the poll results to come in. Obviously, in your role at SEforALL, your role at the UN, you're tasked with achieving SDG 7. Which is to provide affordable, reliable, sustainable energy by 2030. COVID has created both an opportunity and a challenge for doing that. And I'm just curious, how do you think about the role of youth in this moment to bring about, SDG 7 in the next 10 years? How can youth lead in the next 10 years for that push?
Thanks, Justin. I think you mentioned a very important time, COVID, right? And when COVID hit, because it affected the whole world, we found a way to find a vaccine in a relatively short period of time. So we found a solution. And that's what we're asking to happen now. Everybody needs to get together and understand that if without sustainable energy by 2030, you're not going to achieve net zero by 2050. The math doesn't add up. Apart from getting people out of extreme poverty, what COVID has also shown is we see with the vaccine distribution now how unfair it is from the global north to the global south. And most of the global south challenges are also to do with cold chains, that energy is the heart of everything. I come from a world that I feel we can get people out of extreme poverty, especially energy poverty, and do well for the climate. It can't be one or the other. It has to happen in sync. What COVID has also shown us is there are about 1 billion people around the world. You can't say just stay at home. It's just not possible because they have to earn a living. They have to go out. They have to get fuel wood. There's also all sorts of different things. And where the youth comes in is to be part of the solution. I believe that still new innovation. I think there are financial instruments that we haven't even considered. And we need to bring it all to the table this year, hopefully at the high level dialogue and at the COP event, and challenge the global audience. Another thing I feel youth have to do is be part of this movement in terms of also take leadership roles in government. I've always advocated that we can't just keep on doing things from the outside. The youth have to go inside to government and understand and really make the difference there, because that's where the difference is, the enabling environment and the funding actually comes from. So trying to change the minds of leaders has to happen inside and outside government. But like I said initially, just how we found a vaccine for COVID, we need to find an answer to achieving SDG 7. And every country has to come together and be held accountable for making sure a solution is actually put in place.
Right. Well, I think we should be seeing poll results shortly, but until we do, I guess I might go around and ask the participants for their thoughts on that question as well, and if anything in response to the SRSG's remarks. So, Vanessa, I might start with you.
Thank you very much. I think the first solution that is really needed is recognizing the different youth who are doing so much work about ending energy poverty across the world, because there are young people who are providing solutions, who are running projects, but then they are doing this on their own. They are struggling to get support in their own. And I can speak from my own experience. Last year, 2019, I studied a project that involves installation of solar panels and eco-friendly stoves in schools. And I've tried as much as possible to, get funding for this project. And so far, we've done installations in 9 schools, and that means we've managed to provide renewable energy for these schools. We've managed to provide better cooking solutions for these schools, and also education about energy and ending energy illiteracy and poverty in the schools. But then are people looking at the work that maybe young people like me or any other young people maybe in the global south that they're with the work that they are doing? So I think it's important that every voice is included in the solutions that we are searching for the climate crisis. I know that people are looking for that magical solution, to end the climate crisis, but I say we need all solutions. Yeah, we need the renewable energy. We need sustainable energy. We need educating girls. We need eradicating poverty. We need all those goals to work together if we are to see a better planet for all of us, a better planet for the coming generations. And this has to start now by supporting, by amplifying those who are already doing incredible work on ground right now. Yeah, thank you.
Such an important point. Wenhao.
Yes, thank you, Vanessa, for sharing. That's really inspiring. So I guess I'll speak from a financial perspective. So to me, like to address probably the biggest sector in terms of carbon emission, the energy, really engaging youths in the impact investing space or in the intersection of sustainability and finance is super crucial. The first reason I want to bring up is that there are just plenty of interest among millennials to invest in ESG related stuff. A study shows there are more than 87% of millennials want to engage in certain activities. So, but a lot of people don't know how to do that. And to me, I think financial literacy is definitely one of the very important things that youths should engage in to learn about how they can engage better to move from power to empower. I want to bring up a project that I was involved in, not in China where I was from, but in sub-Saharan Africa. So this project is a project finance solar pay-as-you-go model where the location did not have energy access for a long time, and probably due to the nature of the geography, it is hard to get electricity from a municipal level even 20 years down the road. However, from this project finance, those investors can really invest in situations where there are lack of track record and also there is no previous business model. And from that, those villages got kind of engaged or get those electricity power can really, which really translates into more productivity. So I see the result. I guess the last but not least, I want to stress the role of MDBs, multi-development banks, including IFC and MIGA. I think they can also play a super important role in terms of financing the renewables.
Okay, great. And then Anna Sophia, and we'll look at the poll results after we're done with the remarks. Go ahead, Anna Sophia.
Thanks, Justin. Well, Wenhao and Vanessa shared some really exciting examples of when people and youth have been active in the movement. But for those of you that are not yet involved in the movement, I encourage you to be part of it. I have found time and time again that sometimes as youth, we are nervous about participating in these high-level forums because we feel we may not have the right experience or, we don't have the right technical expertise to be part of the solution. But I have found that actually facts are not enough. Expertise is not enough. It is required, but it's not the only thing that's necessary. And I find that youth have a really important role to play in sharing the human stories, their lived experiences, and encouraging and motivating people to act. I'll share a brief example of a time I worked in Puerto Rico shortly after Hurricanes Irma and Maria devastated the island and left millions in the dark for months. It was a very tense environment, and stakeholders from a bunch of different forums came together, but thought that they couldn't work together. Advocates and fossil fuel advocates and clean energy advocates were in conflict, and it wasn't until all these stakeholders came together to share their shared experience of being together in a hurricane and what that was like, that they were able to move forward. And eventually this group of stakeholders passed a innovative climate law that set the island in motion to 100% renewable energy aligned with our climate goals. So once again, to those who aren't already part of the movement, come join us. You have all the expertise you need already to be part of this movement.
Well, thank you, Anna Sophia. Well, I guess we'll just take a look at the poll results here, which seem to be pretty well split. The first first answer here with 34%, give youth a seat at the policy table, and then toolkits to empower youth with knowledge and leadership skills. It is interesting thinking about some of the discussion here, and just Anna Sophia's remarks. It's like you have a lot of the skills, even if you don't realize it. But this is an interesting two, and then the other two that are sort of tied: strengthen engagement and coordination among youth-led organizations and networks, and then advocating for more green/low carbon jobs and skills training. What the funny thing about this to me in some ways is it reminds me of how we need sometimes all of the well, I don't want to say all of the above has a different connotation, but you need all of the solutions. There's lots of things that can be done and we should be doing to foster this. So very interesting poll results here. Thank you everybody in the audience for participating. I want to give Damilola one more opportunity just to respond to any of the comments here or to the poll results, anything that you're thinking about after this discussion.
I mean, obviously, everything everybody's saying is great. I'm really happy that, especially with Vanessa, she told me about her program, so we've been able to speak to other people. But it's not big enough. You have, Vanessa could be doing 100 schools or 1,000 schools, and this is what I mean by being part of a movement, which is really what we want to create here, and going to governments and say, would you fund this? This is a sustainable. This is making sure kids are educated. Wenhao, I really hope you join the high level dialogue. There's a special section on finance. And the thing is, we just have to keep on being part of the conversation. One thing I would give advice, because I'm not a young person anymore, is that when you are at the seat of the table, you need to be prepared. You can't just take it for granted because you're a youth. Even as a woman, sometimes there are people who want to kind of put you down because they don't think you should know what you're saying. But if you learn and you study hard and you be prepared, and that's why we're here to engage with you. If there are forums that you want to get involved with and you don't know how to get involved, email me. I will try and get you on there. But it's important as youth as well that the youth come together, and say, this is our stance on SDG 7, and that's why we created this group. So the youth advisory at the UN, student energy, there needs to be a coalition, just like we have in climate, of young people coming together and demanding certain things in energy, but understanding that they also have to be part of the solutions. And I think it's already happening organically. But what we want right now is for us to just leapfrog, and we're not asking if how you have to. I've been facing this even in diversity issues, just going to meeting after meeting and not seeing anyone who looks like myself. And this is the time that I'm comfortable enough to say I need more diverse people, just like I need more young people in these conversations, and that's what we would love to channel.
Great. Well, with that, I'm going to wrap up this section and move to our second half of this dialogue, which is all about net zero emissions. And, everyone in the audience will know probably, we need to get to net zero emissions by the middle of the century to avoid, the worst effects of climate crisis. And we're not going to do that without clean energy. Of course, it's also important to have a discussion about ensuring access so that we have net zero emissions, but also everybody or a growing number of people, a growing percentage of the population has access to clean energy. So I'm going to start this section again with the SRSG. Of course, you wear many hats. Your work at SEforALL. You're also, I'm going to make sure I get this right, the UN. You're also the high-level champion for the UN high-level dialogue on energy and the co-chair of the COP26 Energy Transition Council. So I'm going to go to a question from the audience. This came in ahead of time. It's from Eban Moreno. He's from Mexico, and he has the question: in a developing country, what could be the main actions to move towards a sustainable net zero future without losing sight of the fight against energy poverty? How can we help youth as social activists if the government is not committed to the cause? So please, curious your thoughts.
I would try and answer. The first thing is energy access has to be part of the energy transition conversation. For too many decades, it's been seen as two different things, that some people just need electricity and some people need to transition. That's not what it's about. It also needs to be recognized that the just transition in the developing world might be different from the just transition in the developed world. The other part is, and this might seem controversial, is we need to stop the hypocrisy of what can happen in developed world and what we dictate in developing countries. Developing countries, most of them have their plans. They understand their plans. They need funding to execute some of the plans or make it better. And then obviously the enabling policies and regulations to come, about it. But we can't make it seem like, every country around the world caused the climate issue, but every country around the world has to solve it, right? And to solve it, you have to recognize that apart from, giving people energy, it's not the basic amount of energy. It's not giving people light bulbs they need. They need energy to do productive use. It's only with productive use they will actually get out of energy poverty. It's not just giving them solar lanterns. So that again is a very critical thing that people don't recognize. They give a solar lantern and they say, "Oh, that's fine. We've ticked electrification." That's not what it is. It's also the same with clean cooking. You need to give them the right types of sources that they can achieve clean cooking. We see from the data that when we enable a woman with sustainable energy, she earns 59% more than what she earned before. So we see what happens organically with women and people when you give them the right amount of energy. But I'll take it from the continent I am in now and the continent I'm from, Africa. Africa still needs to industrialize. The young people, there's like a digital revolution. You have to give them enough energy to do that. And that's one of the tricky parts. And so in your energy transition conversation that we're having, how is access firmly there? How is industrialization firmly there? How is the transition to cleaner fuels for transportation clearly there to show a pure pathway? And underlining all that is who's going to finance this, because you can have the best plans in the world, but who's going to finance this has to be critical. And I honestly believe that the developed world has to finance some of the developing countries to make sure that we're not going through what has happened in the developed world, where everybody's now electrified and we're going back for them to transition. We know it can happen in a clean and efficient way. So that's my stance. And for young people, just advocating for that. So if people come to your country, with energy transition plans, you're like, that's fine, but how am I going to, like Vanessa said, how am I going to power the schools and stuff while you're doing it? You can't tell people to transition out of something they don't have. And that's always been my biggest thing with the global audience. Like, you need to give them something first, but instead of asking them to transition, just give them something clean. And we all know that it's affordable. We know that it will, it would mean more jobs than the fuel equivalent now. Than the fossil fuel equivalent now. So we just need to show these countries that this is the path to go, but this is the financing behind it. So sorry, I went on a bit, but this is a really
No. Very, very, very important remarks, and very well put. Instead of asking them to transition, give them something clean. I thought that was a good way to put it. Wenhao, I want to go to you first. Just your thoughts on any of this.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you, SRSG Damilola Ogunbiyi's remark. I think you raised some super important point. We cannot just give them electricity and assume that will provide everything they need. We need to kind of build up the environment and really empower those people around us and the communities. I want to raise a point about developing countries. Since I'm from China, China has experienced this dilemma of development versus moving towards green. And I think that was the question asked by a lot of developing countries. They're saying, "Oh, we are not as developed as some of the Western countries yet. So why should we kind of compromise on our economy and build on green infrastructures or green sustainable energy access?" So I think youths really have to play a big part in that, because in a lot of the situation, it's not about one or another. It's about we can find collaboration and innovation through those youth's engagement and through talking to people and really advocating for ourselves the importance of sustainable energy access, not just as a good thing to do, but as a must thing to do.
Anna Sophia, do you want to go next?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, I I really like this question because I think for too long we've thought of environmentalism and the energy transition as one of sacrifice, that we must sacrifice a lot in order to safeguard our environment, or or transition to clean cooking or cleaner fuels. And the reality is that we don't have to choose often between increasing our economic standards or mitigating climate change. We have the technology today to do both, and we should do both. Bringing economies into the future does mean focusing on clean energy, because that is what the future is. I think it's really important first not to see this as a big sacrifice that we must make as a global community. And then to the other point about what can youth do in the challenging situations that many of us experience, I'd encourage you to think about starting somewhere. Sometimes it's hard to think about this giant problem and figure out how you fit as a part of the puzzle. But just remember that talking about doing something is not the same thing as doing it. And so, I have found that starting local and starting in your own community is often a really powerful way in order to show leaders that they cannot make excuses anymore, because you have demonstrated that it's possible. Vanessa has already shown that clean energy is possible in the communities where she works. So, now her government cannot say that is not possible, because she has proven it. Find ways in your own community that you can demonstrate to politicians that talking is not enough, doing it is what actually needs to be done. Thanks, Justin.
Well, thank you. Yes. Moving past the language of sacrifice and demonstrating your own communities, two important thoughts for sure. Vanessa, final word for this question.
Thank you very much. First of all, I want to say that there is definitely no climate justice without sustainable energy for all. And like I said, we need all these solutions if we want to walk into a sustainable and equitable world for everyone. And I think that the role of youth in this really starts with their advocacy and creating awareness and educating, because people will only accept, to transition into something that they know about. So I think there is need for education and awareness in communities, in different places, for people to understand why we need to, transition to a more greener economy. And I also think that when you teach, then make it accessible, make it affordable for people, because some of the people I've interacted with, especially the teachers in the schools, when I interact with them, they say, we know the dangers of using so much firewood, but then we do not have any other alternative, and we do not have money for that alternative. So through such projects, or maybe with clean cooking stoves, then teachers finally see that they have an alternative, and they easily, accept it and adopt it, and, encourage someone else, to use it. And also for the energy as well. Sometimes we really need to move to a place of what happens to individuals who don't have any access, to electricity at all, in schools, in their homes. Many times people just can't stay away from their phone for just a day if it doesn't have battery. And yet there are millions of students who are studying with kerosene lamps. They're studying with candles, so that they can, be able to excel in their examinations. So I think the world, the leaders, everyone needs to understand the urgency of providing sustainable energy for all. giving it to them, they will definitely accept it after educating them about the advantages of using it. And also maybe for those who are able to afford, I think what I've realized, people really love a much cheaper alternative. So making it more affordable. Many times people say using solar is expensive for them because they know they have to get a battery, they have to get the panels, so they find it very expensive. And yet in the long run, it's actually a cheaper option. So again, I emphasize on education and also making the materials for those installations much more affordable for the people in rural communities, in urban communities. I believe this will help us transition. And again, young people also have a role to play in creating awareness and, speaking truth to power. Thank you.
Great. I mean, perfect note to end that segment on. Our sort of final segment is just I'm going to go around and ask for one word from each of our youth leaders about youth leading bold SDG 7 action in 2021. And I think because we have a little bit of extra time, I'm going to allow or ask maybe just a sentence or two to explain why you chose that word. So with that, I guess we'll start with Anna Sophia, maybe.
Thanks, Justin. I'm glad I get to share a little bit more because my one word, pretend there's a hyphen in between. I'm gonna call it applied hope, and it's a philosophy actually shared by the co-founder of the organization I work for, RMI, that talks about hope not as something that you think magically your problems are going to be solved and that you don't have to worry about it, but rather to think about applied hope as hope that is motivating you to do what needs to be done for the future you would like to see. So, to all of you out there, I hope that you are able to practice applied hope and join us in this very important movement. Thank you.
Great. Great. Okay, Vanessa.
Thank you. I think my word would be life. And this is because my fight for climate justice, it's mainly about protecting and fighting for the lives of people in different parts of the world, especially those who are being impacted right now. And again, I choose the word life because I think it's important for people to understand that every life on this planet, be it people, be it animals, every life on this planet, it is sacred. And moving towards sustainability, moving towards equity, moving towards justice, I think we can only achieve this if we respect life on the planet, that is lives of people, lives of animals, and any other ecosystems. That's I think I choose the word life. If we are to move towards a future that is healthy, a future that is happy for all of us, a future where everyone has access to the necessities of life, I think that is by respecting life.
Great. Applied hope, life, and Wenhao, you're up.
Yes. Thank you, Justin. I think Anna Sophia and Vanessa chose a noun, so I'll choose a action verb, which is to invest. So I think invest to me means not only investing in yourself in terms of education and also, as I mentioned, financial literacy and also the knowledge about energy, sustainable energy access, but also means invest in the opportunities that are growing in the market and also growing around the world. You can really find so many opportunities right now in terms of solar, wind, and also more and more technologies, and also youth engagement particularly. Finally, I think invest in our future is the most important thing. So that's why we kind of start from ourselves, then we move into the world, and finally to the future. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much to all three of you, Applied Hope, Life, Invest. And then finally, I just want to open the floor to the SRSG just for closing remarks on leading bold SDG on SDG 7 in 2021. So any closing remarks?
So first, thank you. This is exactly what I wanted, and this is the conversations I needed to start happening. But this has to be the start, right? A lot of people talk about investment, boldness. It's also you educating each other, right? And one thing I'm not going to lie to you about is making it seem like it's easy. Because you're younger, people are going to try and say you can't do things, and you have to fight against that. Just like how they say sometimes because you're a woman, you can't do certain things. And for me, that's like a superpower to even achieve even more. I went to this global platform because I thought it was important that globally we need to understand what's happening in the developed and in developing countries. But your voices need to be elevated to heights where we will get you on the platforms, but it needs to be continuous. Like I said, it needs to be like the climate discussion, because it's so much part of the climate discussion. That energy should have never been separated than climate, because if you don't achieve energy, you don't achieve climate. And I don't think enough people really truly understand that. The other parts that young people need to come together is to even conserve energy. I know it sounds really silly, but the amount of energy used for gamers in California, is the same amount of energy for the whole country of Senegal right now. That is the truth. That's the amount of megawatts used in both creations. So even conserving energy, thinking about the apps on your phone, how much energy do they take up? How much time do you charge your phone? What you do with energy and trying to make it more efficient also helps in the climate and the energy conversation. But I'd just like to thank all of you. I always have a plea to kind of go into key leadership positions. Please don't shy away from government. It's one of the hardest things in the world, but it's one of the most rewarding things in the world. Being able to have the ability, at least for me, coming from a developing country, to actually access and make a change to the most vulnerable people who've basically lost hope that the world have forgotten about them is the most rewarding thing you would ever have in your life. And I would really, really, push you guys, to either go back to your countries or just run for something or be part of a special advisory group for someone in government, because you really can't change policy unless you are constantly telling people. And I guess my last point is, again, going with my experience, when I took over in Lagos State, people didn't even believe solar worked. That was the argument. The solar doesn't work. It doesn't work. But I had to show them that they had put all the solar lighting in the shade. It was something that silly and that basic, right? And then circa how many years of me working, 2.3 million people are on solar. It's the most sustainable source, at least in my country, in Nigeria. And you just keep on going and pushing ahead. Again, really, really excited about this Youth Summit and to engage with all of you guys, hopefully in person very soon. Thank you so much, Justin.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's been great to hear, to moderate this conversation, and I'm looking forward to the rest of this Youth Summit. Thank you again to all of our panelists, Vanessa Nakate, Wenhao Soon, Sophia, Mifsud, and of course, thank you to Damilola for having me. With that, I'm going to kick it back to the Master of Ceremony, and I appreciate everybody tuning in, and hope you enjoy the rest of the summit. Thank you so much.
Justin, can I keep you there for 1 second?
Please.
That fact about gamers producing or consuming as much energy as the nation of Senegal, tell me that didn't break your heart and surprise you as much as it did me, because this is what we're talking about. The developing world and the developed world, or the global north and the global south, experience energy justice so differently. Tell me that didn't blow your socks off.
No,
you knew that, of course.
It did blow my socks off. I mean, it's one of those things that when I think about it, it's not surprising, because we know that this disparity exists, but it is shocking when you really think about it. So no, that did blow my socks off. Many things. I mean, I also thought the remark from Damilola about just telling people that solar actually worked. It's amazing how much that you can change things just by being there to say, this is what works. And exactly. Anyway, it was a great discussion.
Thank you so much for moderating that insightful panel. Some key takeaways from Justin and the team. Most youth want a seat at the table, according to the poll. But Damilola reminds us that if we are coming to the table, we have to come prepared. I believe in this summit, we will rise to that challenge. Another point, the energy access and energy transition conversations are not two different conversations, right? Questions about financing are key. The point was made. The developed world must help developing countries get there. There has to be an incentive. Why should the developing world carry the weight of the global north in that sense? And there is no climate justice without sustainable energy for all, says Vanessa. Thank you all to that insightful and wonderful discussion.